Hello everyone, and welcome to another game from round 7 of the London Chess Classic, and it's quite a matchup. Sergey Karjakin with the white pieces against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave with the black pieces. And you all know that Sergey Karjakin has a guaranteed spot in the candidates because he won the candidates last year. He was the challenger to Magnus Carlsen, and everyone was very sad that, for example, in December's World Chess rating list, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave is number 5 in the world with a rating of 2789, only 10 points below Shakhriyar Mamedyanov and Fabiano Caruana. And only Levon Aronian and Magnus Carlsen are in the 2800 club. So it's quite a matchup, and Karjakin didn't really have any spectacular results in 2017, but that might be one of the reasons. He has a guaranteed spot in the candidates. Maybe he's saving all of his crazy surprises for that tournament. So who knows? We might see a totally different Sergey Karjakin in the candidates, like a Karjakin 2.0 or a Super Saiyan Sergey Karjakin. That being said, let's see how this game went. Sergey has the white pieces, and already on the first move we have a lot of excitement. He plays e4, and playing e4 against Maxime means that you have to be like a master of the Sicilian Najdorf. c5 by Maxime, the Sicilian defense, knight to f3, d6, d4, c captures on d4, knight captures on d4, and knight to f6. We have a knight to c3, and here it comes, the famous a6 Najdorf variation. Bishop to g5, e6, f4, h6, bishop to h4, and now queen to b6. Going for that b2 pawn, and here Sergey plays a3, and this a3 has been played a lot lately. Maxime goes bishop to e7. For those of you who are new to this channel, or maybe new to chess in general, you can't capture the pawn on b2, knight to a4, and your queen is trapped. So after a3, bishop to e7, bishop to f2 now, eyeing the queen on b6, threatening all sorts of ideas, like knight captures on e6, queen to c7, getting the queen out of the way, queen to f3, developing the queen, preparing the castle, knight bd7, here we have a queenside castle, and b5. And it's a very nice position for black. Black already started his queenside expansion and is ready to attack. g4, Karjakin now has to push on the king side. Bishop to b7, bishop to g2, and we have g5 now. And probably the best idea for Karjakin in this situation is something like f5, pushing the pawn, and after knight to e5, queen e2, and it's a perfectly fine position for Karjakin and for Maxime as well. But after g5, Karjakin played h4, and it's a very sharp idea. G captures on f4 was played g5 now by Karjakin. Knight to e5 first with a tempo on the queen, queen to f4, capturing, h captures on g5, h captures on g5, and now rook captures on h1, rook captures on h1, and knight f to d7. And you can see that this bishop is eyeing the g5 pawn. It can't capture it like right away, but you can see that the queen is lined up with the queen on this dark square diagonal. So this is never a pleasant situation when this is happening to you, and you don't like this. You always have to calculate, what if he can capture now, what if he can capture now. So in the spirit of that, king to b1 by Karjakin. Queenside castle, we have rook to h3 now, with ideas of supporting the pawn, and maybe if this knight ever moves, rook can come to c3 and harass the queen and the king. So Maxime goes king to b8, getting rid of this once and for all. Bishop to e3, rook to g8 now, now pressuring this g5 pawn. Rook to g3, adding more defense to it. Rook to g7, bishop to h3 now, rook to h7, and queen to f2. Eyeing that b6 square. Now, for example, knight to b6 with ideas of knight a4 or c4 is impossible because simply knight captures on e6. You capture and then bishop captures this knight on b6. So after queen to f2, knight to c5 was played, adding more pressure to the e4 pawn, bishop to g2, defending, and queen to c8. queen to c8 with ideas of bishop to d8 and then bishop to b6, transferring this bishop on this powerful diagonal, as it will be much more active there. Bishop to c1, we have bishop to d8, knight to f3, Karjakin offers an exchange of knights, and we have knight to g6. Maxime isn't interested, and Karjakin brings the knight back, knight to d4, and Maxime brings his knight back as well, knight to e5. We have knight to f3 again, knight to g6, and Karjakin repeats again, knight to d4. And if Maxime played knight to e5 one more time, Karjakin could simply repeat knight to f3 and call a threefold repetition. It would be a draw. But Maxime isn't interested in a draw, even though he has the black pieces. That's very nice. He plays bishop to b6. Bishop to e3, we have knight to e5 now, and now b3. And this b3 isn't really the best move. It weakens the knight on c3. It's you know, don't push a pawn if you're not gaining anything by it. Once you push a pawn, you can never unpush it. So maybe queen to e1 or maybe knight to b3. Both of these moves would still, you know, leave the ball in black's court. But after b3, we have rook to h4 now. And now this comes with ideas. Now this pawn is attacked 3 times from the rook, from the knight, from the bishop. And there are ideas like after this knight moves, for example, then you open up the attack from the queen to the knight. So knight d to e2, and this prevents capturing the pawn, because now you've opened up the attack from the bishop to the b6 bishop. For example, if you capture, knight captures, bishop captures, a rook captures, and now simply bishop captures on b6, and you're down a piece. So after knight d to e2, queen to c7 now, protecting this bishop on b6, and bishop to d4, again indirectly protecting the pawn, because even now you can't capture. If you capture, then knight captures, bishop captures now on d4, and now queen captures on d4. And while black does have this move, d5, now you've pinned the bishop, knight to c3, and after captures, it's a better position for white. So after bishop to d4, knight c to d7 was played, offering an exchange of bishops. We have bishop captures on b6, queen captures on b6, queen captures on b6, and the knight captures on b6. Karjakin accepted the queen trade, but now it's an endgame, and the real problem for Karjakin here is this weak g5 pawn. And there were opportunities where Karjakin could have pushed the g6 before this knight ever came to e5, either to break this small pawn chain, or, you know, just to activate the rook. So knight to d4, we have knight to g6 now, king to c1. Now Karjakin is bringing the king into the game. Knight to d7, king d2, knight to f4, and king e3. And okay, the king is activated. Knight captures on g2, rook captures on g2, and rook to h3 with check. King has to go to d1 to protect the knight on c3, and it would, as you can see, it would be a much more enjoyable endgame if this pawn was never on b3. If it was on b2 protecting the knight, maybe none of this would have happened, and maybe, you know, maybe it would be easier to draw this. King to d2, we have knight to e5 now, knight d to e2, knight to f3 with check. King has to go to c1 now, knight to h4 attacking the rook, rook to g1, and knight to g6. King to d2, we have king c7. Now Maxime is activating his king as well. Knight to d4, king d7, rook to f1, attacking the f7 pawn, but simply king e7. Rook back to g1, that rook has to protect the g5 pawn. Knight to e5, we have rook to g2, bishop to a8, knight d to e2, and knight to f3 check. King goes to c1, and now rook to h1 check. King has to go all the way back to b2, and now knight to h4, rook g4, and knight to g6 again. Knight to f4 here, offering an exchange of knights, but it's not really something. It's not good for white. Knight captures, rook captures, and now rook to g1, and now you're losing the g5 pawn. Rook to h4, rook captures on g5, now king to c1, trying to activate the king again. And it's interesting how this king went king c1, king d2, king e3, and then had to went back king d2, king c1, and king b2 all the way, simply because this b3 move was played. d5, and here after pushing d5, Sergey Karjakin resigned the game. So yeah, I mean, is it an early resignation? Nah, not really. I mean, you could say he's only down a pawn, but after e captures, bishop captures, knight captures, and rook captures, yes, this is a rook ending, and you are only up one pawn. But these are two protected passed pawns, and this is unstoppable. So there's no point in playing this, and Karjakin resigns, you know, justifiably. So yeah, it's like Yasser said. After Karjakin committed that great crime against chess, accepting a draw from Aronian in a winning position, then of course he lost the game against Caruana in the next round. That was his punishment, and now, you know, it's like a downward spiral. He didn't make any mistakes this game, any blunders, but he didn't play the best moves, and Maxime played the best moves, and this is the result. So yeah. A very nice game, and prior to this game, I forgot to say, two of them played 8 games, and the result was a draw. Karjakin won 2 games, Maxime won 2 games, and the 4 games were drawn. So this was like their 9th classical game in their lives, and now Maxime won it, and now Maxime is in the lead. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Ervin Latsai, Eyad Sleiman Aboel, Thomas Staubli, and Michael Warden for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. I will thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. Hopefully with some nice games from the London Chess Classic round 8. See you soon.